Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bikinis After Babies. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today we have a very special guest. But before that, I need to introduce myself, which I am Mandy Rashawn, one of your hosts, here with your other beautiful host, Jillian Hughes.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. You can tell from the title we have a really special guest today, and we're super excited. We are joined today by the one and only IFBB Bikini Pro, India Paulino. India won her pro card in 2011 and is considered one of the OGs of the pro bikini division, bringing her signature Puerto Rican energy and sass to the stage, along with a curvy athletic physique that changed the bikini standard. India has 16 pro wins under her belt over the course of a career that spans more than a decade, with 3 Arnold Classic wins and 7 appearances on the Bikini Olympia stage. India is a mom to 6.5-year-old Breton, who is her pride and joy, and we are so excited to hear about her incredible story today. Welcome to Bikinis After Babies, India Paulino.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Yay!
Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you both and definitely about something that I am so passionate about, which is motherhood and competing. So
Yes,
it's perfect.
awesome.
So
Well,
honored to have you here with us today.
yes. I
Oh,
know you've got
thanks.
quite a story. We're going to try to pack as much as we can into this episode, some rapid fire to kind of get through just all of the highlights of how long you've been competing. Because I think you said more than 15 years you've been
It's been,
competing.
yeah. My first show ever was the end of 2010.
Yeah.
It's been a
So
long time.
right when the bikini division had kind
Yeah.
of started in the inception. So,
Mhm.
well, before I get ahead of myself, I can already tell I'm going to start firing off questions if I don't get this down first. But for those of our listeners that, haven't followed you from the very beginning, or maybe they're new to the sport, can you share with us how you got started competing?
So, I got started. I was a police officer and I worked the midnight shift. And I remember looking at magazines, and this was like, wait, magazines were a lot bigger back then, and now we're all online and all that. But and I remember looking, and it was like during one of my shifts, and it was a fitness magazine, and I remember seeing a bikini girl on stage at the Arnold Classic. Now I knew nothing about bodybuilding. I mean, I had heard of bodybuilding, but I and bikini was new. So I had never been exposed to it. And I remember just looking at this photo and thinking, oh, I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? She's gorgeous. What is she doing? Is this a competition? Like, what is this? I wanted to know more. Um, and that was my inspiration and just motivation to learn more about the sport and get in. And yeah, so that I won't keep going because I can talk forever, but that's how I first became aware of the sport. Um, and then I got involved.
Yeah. Well, I had read somewhere that you were like really petite when you were in law enforcement. And so, like, kind of like learning about strength training and whatnot. And I've always been curious to know what that was like going from, such polar opposites from like,
Oh
wearing the
no.
uniform and being in law enforcement to getting on the bikini stage and, having such a different energy. So, what was that transition like?
Yeah, so that was different. So I've trained my whole life. I've been very active. I grew up dancing. I did martial arts for 8 years, and now I'm getting back involved. Completely different discipline, but I love it. And my son was my motivation for that actually this
Yeah.
time around. But I training was different because I trained to be fit, to survive, it was more like functional type training. And then getting into bikini, our goal is okay, this is the standard physique wise, and you got to look like that. So shaping my body, growing, and that was something that I just fell in love with because I was very small. I wasn't even 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And bikini has evolved in 15 years for sure. And that's actually given me time to be able to put on more muscle as, that's how it's kind of been evolving into more muscle, more shape, all of that. And so the training was new for me, that type of training, just lifting to build a specific physique. But I did love it. I definitely loved it. I loved being active. So that part, I mean, you told me go run a marathon. I was all about it like that. And that's just how I am. So the transition, I would say the dieting part was more of, okay, I got to get used to this type thing because I was so small and I remember trying to eat to put on weight and I just couldn't. So trying to do this now in a controlled way with a very specific goal in mind and now competition because I'm a very competitive person, it kind of changed things, but it was all positive.
Well, and when you first started too, like I think it was such a new division and there was, we were seeing
Mhm.
so many different suit cuts and people trying different poses. And, back then we had like multiple different back poses. Now there's just
Um,
one back pose that everyone does and pretty much everyone has the same front pose. So like I always think about you as like one of the pioneers because I feel like you brought like a really full athletic physique and there was kind of like another kind of string of girls that were maybe smaller, like more like bikini models. So like in the beginning, did that sort of feel like where do I fit in? Like what does my body need to look like to be the standard that they're looking for?
Yes, I mean there was a lot of I remember for me specifically I have a more athletic type body. I'm not very curvy at all. I can only get that way if I put on weight and that's not what we want for this stage. So for me my legs would build very fast and so there was a lot of like, okay, you're going to do this training. I would do it. And it's like, whoa, 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 they're too big now. Bring him down. And it was just a lot of back and forth for a long time to where I actually just didn't train legs. I was like, just don't train your lower body. And they were still there. Like my quads were still there. Now it was more acceptable at that time, but then as it started changing, that was hard, I will say, because it was like, all right, well, I just built it, now you want me to break it down and then build it again. So I'm happy that now we have more of a, okay, this is the standard, this is what you need to fit in. Of course we all look different and we all have different physiques, but we have a more specific idea. Okay, this is what you gotta look like versus when, yes, it first started. And I think a lot of the divisions are like that in the beginning. We're just trying to figure out what are we trying to see here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's cool to look back and see like those photos and just like the suits
Oh
look
my
so
gosh.
bizarre and just all the different poses.
Oh my gosh, the
So
poses.
I know.
I
They're so
I
bad.
will have I will have to say when I pulled up like your record and everything, the first picture that popped up was the stallion pose in your yellow
Oh my
suit.
god.
I was like, "Oh, look at that back cuz I followed
It's
you forever.
crazy.
I started competing in 2016, so I followed it in 14, 15, so I've watched you forever. So it's just looking back at that is it's insane
It
compared to now.
It really is. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. I remember James, my coach, he actually just randomly sent me a picture and I'm like, please don't show me that again. And it wasn't even like it was one of those photos where they catch you like mid transition. So it
Yeah.
was even worse. But I know what pose I was, the front pose. Whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It was good back then. That was the thing back
Yeah.
then.
Oh
You
yeah,
were doing what you were
absolutely.
supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's people don't realize like the history of it and just like how
Um,
much things have changed. And so it's really cool to have somebody who's like really been in it from the start and then taking time away to have a baby and then coming back and being super competitive on the other side of having a baby, which, I definitely want to dive into that. We might just go there right from the get-go because, your career was running really high and you had so many pro wins and you were like considered one of the top competitors in the pro bikini division. And then breaks. She's having a baby, and everyone's so
mhm.
excited. And then you came back like pretty quickly after having your son, right?
Yes. So I didn't. I thought I was done, to be honest with you. When I first got into bikini, I decided I had these goals and, I worked so hard and I gave it my all. And I am thankful and grateful that I was able to accomplish more than I even set out to. And so for me, that was amazing. Then I found out I was pregnant. We were over the moon. Like what a blessing. And even before that, because that actually people, okay, so let me take a step back because a lot of people thought I was actually pregnant on stage and I wasn't because of just how fast it all happened. But um, I I did Arnold. I switched coaches. It was Arnold, Ohio. And then Arnold, no, then from there straight to Hawaii and then Arnold, Australia. And I came back from that. And that same month, about a week and a half or so later, I was pregnant. So, and that just goes to show being healthy and taking care of your body. But, but,
Yes.
yeah, hold on. I got a little bit off track because somebody came to my door and I'm like right at the front.
That's
Um,
this podcast. We're all moms, and we all have like
like,
I had to throw my animals out of my office like before we hit record. Like you gotta go
girl,
because
I
they'll
have
start barking.
6. They're upstairs right now and I hear them. I'm like, please don't ring the doorbell, please.
I
It'll
got
happen.
3,
It's
and
okay.
they all sleep during the day. Like I
Oh,
will say,
that's
my
nice.
dogs are pretty good about sleep. Like our schedules, like they know they're like, she's not gonna take me out now, so I'll just go to sleep.
Oh no, that's nice. Mine are a little wild, but but yeah. So I thought I was done, and I was like, I accomplished more than I set out to. But then, even when I was pregnant and throughout my pregnancy, my I was not thinking about competing. I was focused on my pregnancy, my son. I wasn't, honestly, I didn't even think at all about my body and the changes. I honored it all because to me, I was in such a like a good, peaceful space. But I also had the intention to be that way. I set that intention as soon as I found out that I was pregnant. Um, but then, later on, I'm like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to do this. I want to do this, but I'm not rushing this. I'm going to honor my body, continue to honor my body the entire way. It just created a human, it just grew a human. And that's a lot. And so I wasn't in any rush. I honestly didn't know when I would be ready. Um, and I think that one of the things that helped me get ready faster was the fact that I did not put any pressure on myself at all. I pushed myself, but I didn't give myself pressure. And my priority was always my son. I wanted to be present with my son and everything. And I was able to get back on stage just shy of 7 months postpartum. It was crazy.
That
Yeah.
is crazy. What made you decide that you were ready? Like that you physically and mentally were ready to dive back into it?
So I took it. I think the fact that I didn't, it's mentally how I thought about it. It was something that I said, okay. And I had to change my mindset because from going from super competitive, go, go, go to now, I feel like I have to put in that same energy to be able to accomplish that. Um, I it was just a little bit of a mindset change. And I did it and I said, I'm going to take this slow. However long it takes, there's no pressure. I don't care. I have nothing to prove. I need to be here for my son. That's all that I am focusing on. But I am going to do what I need to do as well. So I started training in my garage. We had this little gym in the garage and I did what I could. I started with like three days a week and then I slowly started upping it. When I remember feeling, okay, I'm tired now. My hours were all over the place, as you know, with a newborn. But yeah, I think that's really what it was. I just completely let go of, you need to do this at this time. You need to do, like, this is how it has to be. No, it's going to happen. I'm going to let it flow. I'm going to get it done, but I'm not going to be hard on myself. I'm not going to, you know, make myself crazy if I don't get this workout in like I used to post baby. It just doesn't make sense. So it was a lot of just being understanding of myself and not putting the pressure on myself, if that makes sense. And
That
it
does.
just kind of it happened, naturally. Just
It's I feel like not having that pressure and not having that stress had to help so
oh
much.
yeah.
And mentally you're present with your son, and there's no, how do I like, there's no like regret, like,
No.
oh, I did XYZ and I did this, and it's like you're looking back at that time because they're only so young for so long. Like I have a 15-year-old, and I remember when his little feet were like little, and it's just like I wish I like,
It
but you
goes
look
so
back at that and you're
fast.
like,
It does.
Oh, it does.
I'm
It's
having a hard
crazy.
time with that now because my son, he's 6.5, and I feel like the difference from kindergarten to first grade. And I'm like, wait, when did you grow up so much, sir? Like the little, like just the little baby. It's like there's that tiny little baby left, and I'm like,
Yeah.
don't go away, please.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh, my heart. And there was a mom who said this to me, and I didn't forget it. She said, there is this heartbreak that a lot of people don't understand. And it's like when a mom's like her son starts growing up and he's like leaving the baby, he's not like a little baby and he's turning into like this little man. And there's like this like sort of heartbreak that is very weird. And it just,
It's
I was
so
like, okay,
true.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you don't expect it, but as like they get older, like my son is driving now, and
Oh my
he's so
gosh.
responsible, and we have such a close bond. Like we're really close, and he's very sweet and loving. And but I'm like, you're just this big human now. Like you used to be
No.
like I could carry you around on my hip, and it just makes you sort of think like, oh gosh, like that you don't get that time back. But I get the sense that that was something you really valued from the start, and I think a lot of mom guilt kind of comes from like just feeling like you have the pressure coming from everywhere, like to be a good wife, be a good
Mm.
coach, be a good mom, be a good competitor, all these things. And I know a lot of people listening are probably like in the carpool lane listening to this going like, oh my gosh, I just need to find that place of peace. So what's your advice for anybody that is maybe struggling with that and they really just feel pressure coming from everywhere?
Yeah, that's hard. And I think there's really no way to escape that 100% completely for our whole lives. I think we all, we're human and we're going to go through just like, life and our emotions. Sometimes they come in waves, and there are times that are going to be harder than others. And I say, let's not beat ourselves up over that. We're doing the absolute best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
As hard as it is, it's very important for us to take time for ourselves, for our minds. Um, and that can look different for everybody. Does that mean, I know we're all tired, but does that mean we get up a little bit earlier to just take some breaths, meditate, or stretch out, drink your coffee alone, sit on your porch? I don't know, just what makes you happy, what makes you feel peace. And you may have to go back to what was that for me before I had children, before I have the life that I have now. um and I know for me, just from coaching women, sometimes that's, we can't even pinpoint that. It's like, what do I like to do? What do I enjoy, and so it's important to go back to that and just think again, it doesn't, you may not have an hour, but if right now, but maybe you can look at things and make it to where fit it, schedule it. Everybody's lives their life differently. For me, I have to be very structured just because I manage so much all day. But in there, I make sure, okay, time, like what I try, and I drive myself crazy sometimes trying to do this, but and I'm totally fine with it. But I want that when I pick up my son from school, I want to be able to give myself to him and be present and do that. Now, does that mean that I'm not doing other things too and I'm just sitting on the couch with him? No, I would love that, but I also always make sure that when he does speak to me, I look him in the eyes, I give him my full attention. I ask him how his day was. If he can't explain, because developmentally, where children are in different places depending on their age, and so trying to help him work his brain, and emotions and all that are super important to me. And since he was in my belly, I've been talking about emotions and describing things to him and helping, just understanding and being able to express what you're feeling. Where do you feel it in your body? All those kinds of things. So, for me, doing that and having those types of conversations and really listening, it's more quality time than, when we're, and again, it takes 2 seconds. It's just how we speak to our children and how we view it. Cause it doesn't mean that I'm taking more time out of my day. It's just that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It
Um,
does. You're giving him, you're validating too.
yes.
That's what's so great to teach them when they're so little. So when they are older, like Julie and I are like, our kids are teens, like they will come to you because they know that you will give them that
Yes.
validation that their feelings are being heard and they're not falling on deaf ears. And it is really important to be able to communicate and express yourself and in a safe environment, so you know what's going on and how they're feeling. So that's so important. Like you said, if even if it's 2 seconds, it's the most important 2 seconds to him and for your guys' bond.
Oh yeah,
It's really important.
definitely. Especially when they come home from school, they're carrying so much, and those first 3 minutes are so important. I always say the first 3 minutes they wake up, first 3 minutes as soon as you pick them up, and 3 minutes before bed, like before they're falling asleep. If you can really give them and be there, um, very present in those times, it makes a huge difference. But just in general, that's always been something for me that's been very important. And yeah, but I try, I do my best to juggle everything and just get everything done before, so that the things that I am doing aren't like he's my priority during those, when he's home.
It's a great tip. I think that's really helpful. That'll help a lot of moms, I think, just sort of go, okay, I can't necessarily create more time, but I can be more intentional and like, give my
Yes.
full focus so it's quality. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
do
and
want to,
talking
oh, sorry, go ahead, Mandy.
No, well, because you were saying how you are really structured, I feel like sometimes that gets a negative spin, but it's not. It's so, if you structure your
Yeah.
day and your life, you can get not only so much accomplished, but when it is time to allocate something that is so important, like spending time with family or spending time with your kids, you can give it your all
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's no distractions because you took care of everything already by being so structured. And so you get to have that fun time and that important time without any distractions. And I know we always try to tell that to our clients too, like, hey, if you have to schedule time, schedule it. It's okay. Like, schedule your fun time, schedule your time with your kids, your husband, because that way you can be all in during that time.
Yeah, and I have like major ADHD, so I have to be very structured. It's again just being self-aware and knowing when am I my best. If I have things that I'm thinking about that I have to get done, I will be completely distracted, and I don't like who I am when I'm in that space. And so recognizing that, for me, it's important to, okay, I'm going to do this. Plus, like I said, 6 animals, that's like having 7 children because they're all very needy.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, and everything else that I have to do. So, it's not even necessarily that I say, okay, this is our play or whatever, but just that time, like I said, when pick him up or we're going to jujitsu or we're going, okay, then just I know I got all of those things that are going to be lingering in my mind done. And I still have to remind myself, because there's always stuff to do, is girlfriend, let it go. It's not that important. Like, you can do it tomorrow. And that was very hard for me to get used to, because I wanted to do, again, coming from I'm still a very intense person, but just coming from just that switch. Okay. The transition between just 100% basically workaholic and business and competing and that mindset to motherhood was something that was really hard. That was a very hard transition for me. So again, I had to find ways to be able to make that more smooth. And that was one of the ways. I wanted to make sure I'm the type of person, I got to get it all done. I, this. I had to learn to let things go. So that was hard, but I'm happy that I really focused on improving that.
Yeah, that thing that's tough for a lot of people. Like you barely have any time before kids, and then you have a child, and you're like, what was I so busy doing before I had a child? But those of us who like have been in the sport as a mom, we know that you just get it done. You don't really find more time. You just have to be smart with your time. So it's great to hear
Mhm.
that from one of the best of the best. So thank you for that. So you kind of mentioned that like pregnancy was like a pretty smooth ride for you, and like your body like bounced back. Obviously, you got back on stage like 7 months after your son was born. Did you do anything? Because I know people are going to ask this. Like, are there any specific things that you did to like get everything to kind of go back to the way it was, or were there things about your body that you're like, oh, okay, I got these hips now that I like, or any of those sort of things that kind of were going on physically with you in the transition from
Yeah.
Olympian to pregnancy to back on the stage?
Yeah, so I was hoping I got a little bit of hits. I did not. I was hoping I got a little bit. Um, I have to, again, we're all different and I mean, as you know, you have 5 children. Every pregnancy can be different. And so for me, I think the biggest thing was my mindset. So I was planning a home birth, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to have that. I was diagnosed with IUGR at 37, almost 38 weeks, and so I had to get induced. But so I really just mentally worked on a lot of different things, prepping for that home birth and still being open to whatever God wants, right? I can't make that decision. I don't know what's going to happen. And, this is ideally what I would love. But if something needs to change and it's whatever's going to be, best for my son. Um, I, what did I say? Um, I think so pregnancy wise, I it was amazing. I tried to there's a lot of words of affirmations, a lot of things like that. I did yoga, which I absolutely loved throughout my pregnancy. I did work out. First trimester, I was so tired. It was rough. I didn't work out as much, but as soon as I got that burst of energy, I trained, of course, listening to my body. I didn't go crazy. I wasn't training like I was training for a competition or even off season. I wanted to get some exercise in, but again, with different mentality and thinking, of course, of my pregnancy first. I'm so happy that I did that because I think it does make a very big difference when it comes time to give birth. Um, and then postpartum was different for me though. Postpartum was tough. That was where I loved pregnancy so much that I actually became a certified doula while I was pregnant.
Oh,
And that
cool.
was, yeah, that was awesome. Gosh, I love pregnancy so much and just the whole journey and birth and all of that. And I knew, you know, postpartum but it's different when you experience it. And that was rough for me. That was really hard. I think competing helped because it gave me something else to also focus on,
Mhm.
but it was hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's I think I think that is something that isn't spoken about as much as I think it should be. We focus on the pregnancy, but I think that for moms and new moms especially that don't know, our hormones are just like, whew, and there's nothing we can do to like, um and just I think educating moms on, okay, these are some of the things that your body is going to go through, and
Mhm.
it can look like this. You may experience this, and that's normal, or this is not normal. Or if it gets to this point, then seek help. I just think that I would love for there to be more education around, that phase of everything, the fourth trimester, as I like to say.
Never heard that fourth trimester, but that does make sense because you're spot on. Like, it's like after you give birth, you're just supposed to go back to normal. And then you have all of this stuff. Like, you have all these people that want to come see you, all these people that you're supposed to entertain. You have this tiny human you're supposed to take care of with no manual. And like, you're trying to do all of this stuff. And it's like, you don't even know who you are
Yep.
anymore. And you have hormones that are just trying to figure themselves out in your body while you're trying to do all this stuff. And having a place to go to be able to talk about that more and knowing that it's okay. So if any of our listeners are going through something like that or like have gone through something like that, always feel free to comment or message and like
Definitely.
message somebody or anybody that will like help you. And we're all willing to talk about it.
Definitely. Yes. I love speaking to all different women and different,
Mm-hmm.
wherever they are in their journey. So they can, and if you guys are listening and you ever need information or just need somebody to talk to, feel free to DM me. Instagram is the best because Facebook I like lose track, but I am always willing to help because I think a lot of moms sometimes feel alone. It's a very different feeling. There are things that maybe you don't have somebody that you feel comfortable talking to, or maybe sometimes there's things in thoughts that you feel like, oh my gosh, how can I think this? What is this? This doesn't make sense to me. But I definitely not judgmental in it, and I get it. We all get it. We've all we've all been through it. And it's weird. It's really weird.
It is weird.
But
It is, there's not a lot of preparation for it. Like it just, I think even speaking about it is so helpful for people to hear. It's like, oh, it's just so nice to hear that you're not alone. Like even if we don't have all the answers, like here for
yeah.
everybody, at least just knowing like, okay, like you're not the only one going through this. It is, there's just a lot going on and so much that we can't avoid. And but again, that a
Mhm.
lot of people don't talk about. And you're looking at the mom next to you who's just like blissfully happy with her newborn, and you're like, why am I such a hot freaking mess? I must be the only one.
And
So
that
I
and
think
you
that's
touch
great.
on something so important is that what you see on social media or around you, it's like a cover of a book. You don't know until you actually know the story. And so it can be easy to compare or to assume, but just do your best to not, because listen, every single person, I don't care who you are, we all go through things. We're all going through things. And, yeah, some of us take more of an approach to on different approaches and are more, what's the word? Sorry, my sometimes Spanish. I think Spanish and I can't say it in English, but we we're more active, I would say, in trying to understand what's going on within us and doing that personal development work that is very difficult. And others are pretending that it's not happening because they're not in a place yet to be able to accept it or to see it. And so we're all in different places when it comes to that journey, our personal development journey of our lives. So I like to say, just please do your best and not compare yourself to anybody else, because your story, your life is very unique to others, and it's not always what it seems. So,
Well, that kind of brings up something that I wanted to talk to you about as well, because kind of going through, your career and being such a pioneer in those early days of, pro bikini and then having a baby, like, did you sort of struggle with some of the balance of wanting to keep some of your personal life private, but being like, a public figure where people are very interested in what you're doing and have a lot of questions for you and are really like have a deep investment in like what you're doing all the time? Like, was that at any point difficult for you to find that balance and try to keep some things private?
so I feel like I'm a very private person, and I think that for me, I think that's one of the things that I've never really put much of anything out there too personal at all. And so I guess what I have questions sometimes is, should I share a little more? Or but it's I don't know, I'm that private, and so I share here and there, but I never get too deep into anything. Now if I'm speaking to someone, or it's like an individual type of thing where I get a DM or something, and someone, we're talking about, I don't know, something, and then I may share more on a personal level. But that, I would say, that has been something that I've asked myself or tried to kind of figure out, should I? And then I always go back to, no, no, I don't want to share. I just don't, I I'm comfortable to a certain point. I think that's just, I was raised that way, to not um
Yeah.
talk about your private family stuff or just certain things, and I am like, I think it also, so to a lot of people that know me, they see the very extroverted side of me, but I'm also very introverted, and I think I'm actually more introverted than I am extroverted. And so some people are like, no, you're totally not, but I am.
Yeah.
So I think it also kind of goes back to that.
No, I think that's good. I think it's good to have like clear boundaries. And I'm sure a lot of people wrestle with that of sort of like almost like they feel a responsibility to like share something they're going through because they know they have this audience. But then it can be really uncomfortable because you're like, wow, that's so vulnerable and private. And, I think
Yeah.
it's more authentic to just really like follow your heart with that. But I think moms, specifically, like I was listening to an interview with Cass Gillis the other day, and she, just made the decision not to post photos of her child on her page.
Yeah.
And I think like, wow, like, I don't really consider that when I'm posting things, but for somebody with the magnitude of reach that you have, it's
Right.
sort of like, it's such an art the way you do it. I think you show so much of your personality and your family and competing and all of the things that people really do get to see, all the best sides of you. But I always respect somebody when they are able to keep things private without almost like making their life like this like top secret thing. It's like they're not like, trying to conceal who they really are. It's just that balance that everybody's really entitled to.
Yeah, like there's certain things that I definitely like my son's school, for example. Like I won't post that because there's just crazy people out there, and I just, like I try to, yeah, I try to share as much without just, you get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get
Like
it.
getting
I
to
totally
like
get it.
the yeah, I mean, and again, if they're like, for example, when I do those like ask me a question and somebody asks like a very specific question, okay. I think sometimes too I'm like I don't even know what I don't know. Like what would people want to know? And then am I comfortable with that? So I just
Yeah.
kind of keep it kind of like surface, even though I'm not a surface level person, but when you're dealing with like you don't know who you're dealing with or who's out there, then I do
Mm-hmm.
keep it very, very
Yeah.
surface level, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also talk about the break that you had after coming back after having your son, and you got on the Olympia stage that year, and then you were gone for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
So, during that time, like, were you focusing on, business, family, life? Like, what was kind of going on? Were you thinking you weren't going to come back, or what was kind of going on during that time frame?
Yeah, so because like I said, I thought I was done even before my son. And then it was like, all right, well, I'm coming back. I want to show women that, because I had the amount of women who messaged me when I got pregnant and they were like, oh my gosh, like I never expected you because I was, doing really well. And they're like, I want a family, but I'm afraid of, my body changing. I'm afraid of, taking a break and then not doing well. And so it was, I couldn't tell you the amount of messages.
I
And
bet.
I wanted to show women, listen, if you want a family, have your family because you don't always like that's such a blessing. And I don't think that, we'll ever say, I'm 100% ready. Like, there's always going to
No.
be thoughts, right? Oh, well, what if, and if it's something that you know that you want, I say do it. Do it. You're not going to regret. You never regret a baby. you
Yeah.
know, it's hard, it's life changing, definitely, but it's so rewarding. And if competing is what's stopping you from that, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here. It's going to be here when your son or your daughter is 10, 20. Like it's going to be here. Bodybuilding has been here for a very long time. It's only growing. It's not going anywhere. And
Right.
so I say, have your family if that's what you want. And you're always there. I honestly, I had no idea what my body was going to be like, but I wasn't even thinking about that. And I look better after having my son than
Mm.
before, and so I don't know, to me it was, I just loved just the whole thing during that time when I stopped. So I did a few shows. I got back on the Olympia stage 9 months postpartum. And I remember that was a goal. I remember seeing I was pregnant at the Olympia the year before and then coming back on stage and my son was in the crowd. Like that was everything to me. And he was like so little with his little headphones on and that was everything. Like it was such a different feeling being on stage, um having my child and being that young and in just such a feeling of accomplishment that like no matter what I was happy. I already won. That's how I viewed it. And so taking the time off for almost 5 years, I really just focused on my family and that transition that I was talking about, where that was very difficult for me. And just changing, okay, this is how I handled business before. And what is that going to look like? Because can you do it all? That's such a popular question. Oh, you do it all. Yeah, you can do it all, but you can't give everything 100%. And
Yeah.
is that bad? No. I mean, I'm the type of person that I like giving everything 100%, But when you are so sure in what number one is, you have to be okay with not what does that 100% look like now, versus before. And so that was something that I really worked on, because I was always so, okay, this is what I'm doing business wise. I would say it was almost like I was so masculine in that sense. And I really needed work on my femininity. I really did. And I think that that's something that really helped me with competing. I also had a lot of things that, and personal development has been huge for me for so many years. It's saved my life. It has allowed me to be in a place and love who I am and have the family that I have now. Because many, many years ago, I was in a very, very, very dark place. And that's something that I don't talk about publicly, but I do want people to know that. Um, looking at my life now and everything that I have, oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
Oh.
um, and just thinking what that was so many years ago, it's just like, oh my gosh. And the reason for that is just focus. I knew I wanted a son, and I knew that I never wanted my child. eh, My stuff is not my child's. What we carry, our traumas, our wounds, they don't belong to our children. And if we don't heal, we will give it to them in some way, shape, or form, in the way that we respond, in the way that our perception, in the way that we speak to them. It comes out, right? And so for me, I worked really, really hard on healing a lot of things. And personal development is something that you go through for the rest of your life. We're constantly, everything is levels and cycles. And um, so I focused, I mean, even when I found out before pregnancy, I was doing this. Pregnancy, I was doing this. After, in those four years too, I focused on that transition from being 100% like just full blown business, making money, to, okay, thankfully I have an amazing fiance. I call my husband. We're not legally married, but we're basically married. Been together 8 years, and he's the father of my son. And that's where, and I'm getting into something completely different, but like a lot of women who are very strong women and very career driven have a hard time. But when you find that man who is in that masculine space, and you're like, okay, he's got it, I can tone it down a little bit. I can be a woman. I can be full blown mom. So that's something that is amazing. I'm so thankful for him. For me, I always have to do something. I love working. I love doing things for myself, but I did take a big step back so that I could focus on my family and my son. So to me, it's like having the best of both worlds. But my son again is my whole world, and I'm still doing what I love to do, just not as much as I was before. So like now I take on clients, just I scaled it back, very limited and very specific, versus before, where I took on a lot more. Where am I don't want to feel like I don't want anything to take, if it's taking too much of my energy, then I need to take a step back. Now, later on in my life, okay, I can do something else. But right now, and in those 4 years specifically, where my son was like in that baby stage that does not last long, that was my priority and focus. Sorry, that was long.
So good
No,
though. So good.
no, but that
That's such
goes
good
back
advice.
to it goes back to what you said at the beginning, like what you just described. You took that pressure off yourself and you focused more on pushing yourself. It's two totally different things. And you have a partner that like allows you that, I call it quiet space. Like it allows you to be quiet, and you can find out like what really, where the space you really want to focus on, your energy, your time, what's important, because you have a partner
Yeah.
that you guys can work together, and you can do that for each other, and you have this beautiful family and this beautiful life, while you're right, you're always going to be working on yourself. We're always going to get older, our kids are going to get older, everything's always going to change, and we're just going to keep working on ourselves. And you got to be okay with that, to be like, I'm always going to change and learn what's going to work for like your chapters of life.
Right.
What part of development do you need for yourself and your family for that chapter of your
Mhm.
life? So I think that was beautiful. Like, I love that you
It's
shared
great.
that.
I think a
Thank
lot of
you. Yeah.
women are drawn to this sport because they're career driven, goal driven, high functioning women. And sometimes it's hard to like set boundaries or like feel like you're doing enough. And, they want to like, have this kick ass career and then compete at the highest level and then have everybody's doing well. And it's just like, it's a lot. So I
It
think
is.
having the right partner that can allow you to sort of just go, okay, like I don't really need to like take on the entire world myself. Like I'm sharing that responsibility with someone else. But I think that's really awesome and definitely keys to your happiness as well because you just glow like you are in a really good place. You're really happy. You've got,
Thank
lots of
you.
passions and, you're in a really good place. So I think, and I know it's been a journey and we don't have to dive into the deepest parts of it, but like the personal development piece, I'm sure people are going to say, well, what does that look like? So like, do you have some tools for people that are maybe thinking, okay, that's probably something I need to do. Like, what does that look like? Where do I start?
Yeah. So it's going to be different for everyone. And, for me, like with my clients, it's on a very individual case, like basis, but self creating this number one before anything is being open to it, to seeing those parts of yourself that you've been running from, hiding from, you've stored deep in there because it hurts, right? So being open to that, because there are many people who love the idea, but then when it comes down to, okay, let's start this work, there's this wall that is just not budging, you know, and they may not be ready for that step yet. So I think just knowing, and people, you'll know, are you ready to take this on? Because it's not easy. This is one of the hardest things there is to do. It's really digging deep and reliving certain situations and things that were said to you and going back to past traumas and wounds and all of that, and then bringing it back up and looking at it from a conscious standpoint, um and that self-awareness, and then being responsible for, you know, when a trigger comes up and recognize it. Now it's all steps and it's slow, but I think self-awareness and knowing, am I ready to take this? Am I ready to change my life? Yes, it sounds great. Am I ready to dive in? And it's not going to be fun, but I know that in the end, I'm going to come out so much more happier. I'm going to have true love for myself. I'm going to clear some of this weight that's been on my shoulders and I can't even tell where it's coming from. There's so many beautiful things that come from it, but it's like we got to chip away at the layers that we kind of piled on from when we were kids. So, yeah.
Childhood trauma is such a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
I love that more people are talking about it and it's becoming more of a known thing. But like you said, it's like the onion theory. Like you have to like peel back all of those layers, and it comes to like things in our childhood or in our teenage years that we have to confront.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's you got to be ready for it though.
Oh, yeah. You
For
do. And
sure.
then, and having that support system, I always say, and it's hard. I get it. There are it's hard to find people that you trust, that you can, you may have a group of people, and not, that doesn't mean that every person is someone that you go to because you trust with this. You could have a person that you can trust with, maybe, I don't know, one aspect of something going on, and then somebody else for something else. But find your people, your tribe that you trust completely, because it is very helpful. And we tend to want to hide in this little shell when we are going through this because we feel maybe people don't understand us. Could be, we may feel shame or guilt or embarrassment, whatever it is. So it can be a very lonely time, but fine. And that journaling is amazing. Like, just write. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Whatever comes, it doesn't have to make sense. Right. Because it's a form of an outlet, and things that we have stored inside comes out. And it goes back to finding, a little bit of time, a few minutes. Is it going to be journaling? Is it going to be meditating? Is it going to be yoga? What helps you release? Because, for example, training. Yes, I love training, but I don't view training, and this might sound weird to some people or maybe a surprise, but training isn't the place where I wouldn't call it my outlet. Let's just say that. Which it's an outlet for a lot of people. And does it help? Yes. But if I were to choose an outlet for me, it's not training because I just view it differently for
I'm the
me.
same way. I know what you're trying to say.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but find your thing, and help
Yeah, it's got
release.
to be. I think it has to be something else because, like, you know, working out is, of course, it's self care, but the way that we're doing things, it's like
Yeah.
a job. And I don't want to say that to make it
Yeah.
sound like I don't want to do it because I love
No, I
training and
should.
it's a privilege and honor, and I'm so happy to have a healthy body. But it isn't like my therapy, like
Right.
it's another form of like really just putting more stress on my body that I enjoy, but having something else that's like more of a calming release or something like that. You mentioned yoga, meditation, journaling, all those things I think are like, probably more towards that, like, let's not beat yourself up more than you already are.
Yeah.
I
So,
think as you get older, like as we get older, we learn that. Because like when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and I worked out, oh, it was my release. It was my
Oh,
everything. But now that I'm older with kids and a family and
yeah.
all this stuff, I'm like, I love doing it. I have my schedule. I love going. It's fun. But like my outlet, and I tell this to my clients, like I love to cook. Even if I don't eat it, it's something, there's something so peaceful about
Yeah.
it. So like therapeutic, and it's quiet, and it's just like me trying to do this thing. And
I
like
love it.
it is, it doesn't always turn out pretty, but it does turn out good.
always turns out pretty good, Mandy.
I
You
am a
make some
good
good
cook.
stuff.
Awesome. I love it.
I just can't make it look pretty. Like my son is so sweet. He's like, you should go to these cooking shows. I'm like,
Oh.
no, no. Like they would roast me for how ugly the food. Like I can't do the pretty plating. But anyways,
Oh,
that's
I
my
Love
love
it.
thing.
that though. I wish I was
Well,
better. I had more of a passion for cooking. I
Yeah,
like it, but like my husband, he eats it's very plain all the time. So it doesn't even, why would I make all this like amazing, like pretty
yeah,
stuff? And he's just going to be like, I just want chicken and rice.
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I know.
They'll
Yeah,
eat whatever
totally.
I put in front of them. So it kind of works out. Like both my husband and my kid, they're really good. I'm like, this is dinner, this is lunch, this is whatever. And if it's my food, they're like, okay. But if it's
Oh,
something like elaborate, like I just felt like cooking something, I
yeah.
wanted to try to cook something, they'll, like my husband came to me and he wanted some pasta chicken, like saucy Cajun
Mhm.
dish. And I'm like, I made homemade everything and I put it all together and he loved it. But I
That's
was like, I
awesome.
can't touch that.
None for
Like
me.
I'm not, it was not my cup of tea.
That's
But I'm
funny.
like, you're good. But it's fun. It's like your
Mhm.
outlet. So
Definitely.
Well, this is a really fine segue into my other question. Well, I have so many. We're not going to get to all of them, but I do want to talk about some of your passions and interests because, again, like, when we see a pro bikini athlete, we know the typical things, that they train and we know they eat well and all of that. But there's other things that in your repertoire and things that you're passionate about. And so I kind of wanted to dive into some of those, one of them being animal rescue. It's something that you're very passionate about. And so I'd love to hear like how you got involved in that and what some of the projects are that you're involved in now.
Yeah, definitely. So I love animals. I have 5 rescue babies currently at home, um, 3 dogs and 2 rescue cats. My Sphinx was a gift many years ago, so she wasn't rescued, but I love her to death. Um, I think it just I the amount of donations that come out every single month to different rescues around the world is, yeah, and I'm all about it because animals and children don't have a voice, right? And so what's going on right now, and I think a lot of people don't realize, it's just like the crisis with shelters is such a big issue. There are so many dogs and cats being euthanized, like thousands upon thousands every single day, all over the United States, because there is no room. The shelters are full. And what's happening is we have owners who, or people who go adopt an animal or buy an animal from a breeder and then realize, you know what, I can't do this. I don't want to train it. I don't want to clean up. I don't want to do all these things. goodbye, and they take it to the shelter, there's no room. So if you have, let's say you have 300 kennels, and that day you get 300 more dogs that are coming in, like, where do you put them? Yes, you can start putting 2 or 3 dogs. I mean, and then what the next day when you get 100 more? And it is a real thing, and so it's just heartbreaking, and it's easy when you don't see it, but when you know this is happening. I mean, I remember seeing just some of the photos of, sorry, we couldn't help you. And it was like these beautiful, like, innocent, perfectly good dogs and cats just being put down just because of lack of space. And it goes back to responsibility. And I always say, like, pets aren't, it's like a child. If you make that commitment, that's your commitment. I get there are unexpected things that happen sometimes. I completely understand that, but 99% of the time, that's not what's happening. It's just people are too lazy, and I'll say it, to train their dogs or help them through a bad situation, and it's hard. And you have also a lot of, like, backyard breeders that are not breeding ethically. They're just breeding to sell and make money. And they're breeding dogs that are sick. They're breeding all these, and then they sell them and then, you know, then people get them. Oh, well, this dog isn't healthy, shelter, or, how many times this dog isn't going to walk or whatever, throw it away. Like, it's heartbreaking. It really is. And so, I have my last two rescues have been from the Powerful Rescue, and it's run by Steph and Duke, and they're actually in the fitness world. Duke actually competes. Steph has competed in figure, Duke in physique, men's physique, and they are two of the most amazing human beings. I mean, they dedicate their lives to this. They were in California, and they sold everything to be able to go to Texas where they could have land to be able to have a bigger rescue and rescue more animals. And they're doing this out of their house. They have regular jobs and they do this. And I have 6, and I'm like, oh my God, like, how do you rotate 40 animals, And they are just angels on earth. And they do this, and they rescue some of, like, a lot of seniors, and some of the hardest cases where if they didn't, they would end up getting put down, because typically they go for the senior dogs, or the dogs who need medical or something like that. Those are going to go first. So my Hawk, who is half German Shepherd, half Belgian Malinois, I drove to Texas. It was like 18 something hours, picked him up because he was too big at 16 weeks already to fly back, and turned around and drove right back to Florida. So that was like a 40-hour plus. And I will say they are they go very in depth with their applications, and it should be that way, because they want to make sure that these dogs who have been through so much go to a home where they're not going to be thrown out again. And at any point, if, let's say, you adopt a dog and God forbid something terrible happens and you just can't anymore, they will always take that dog back. You have to give the dog back to them and not anybody else, type thing. But I did want to give them a shout out and just encourage, people who are thinking about getting a pet, to check out your local shelter. There are so many pets in need, and don't ignore the quiet one, the one that's terrified. Those are sometimes the dogs that need the most, and those are usually the dogs that are put down first, because they are probably not going to get adopted. And hang in there. I think it's like people, we all go through things, and we all have our traumas, and some of these dogs, unfortunately, were treated very badly, and it's going to take time for them. My bulldog, Ellie Mae, we rescued her last November. I flew to Texas. No, yes, I flew to Texas and flew her back. And she, it took her, I would say, more than 6 months for her to finally decompress, because she was bounced around so much. She was bred and dumped, and then a foster picked her up, and then they found her as a stray again, which is horrible. But she's now, with the time, she's 100%, like, she knows, okay, this is home. I'm here. I'm not going to get bounced around. So patience is key, and seeing them for who they are. yes, they can be a pain in the butt. I get it totally. Mine drive me crazy, but they're also innocent souls that, gosh, they're just unconditional love. So I just wanted to say that and just encourage people. And if you are having a hard time with your dog, reach out to trainers, reach out to me. I will help however I can. I have so many people writing me about dogs. I love dog training. I love just write me and I will help you as much as I can if you're having a hard time with that.
I
And
love that so
we'll put
much.
their information in the show notes so that way anybody listening that if they're looking to adopt and they want to make sure they go through a reputable breeder and they really want to help animals that they'll be able to reach out to your
We will
friends
link
and see
everything
and
Yes,
below.
so these are
yeah.
so they don't breed, they're just a rescue.
Yes.
I say adopt, don't shop. There's so
Mhm.
many dogs looking for homes. And nowadays a lot of times, like I said, there are so many people that are breeding animals unethically and like you think you're getting a dog and then they're unhealthy, but um yeah, so I'm not
Yeah.
saying buying from a breeder that you know is bad. I'm not saying that at all. But if you have the option to adopt, there are, like I said, so many dogs that are looking for homes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
of
I have a
course. I love it. I love that we brought that
yeah.
up. It just shows like you have so much love to give. And, now throwing that into the mix of like everything else that is on your plate, you really are just a true example of someone who juggles it all. So
I
thank you
try.
for sharing that. Yeah. Well, before we close, I do have another question. We are very curious to know what is next for you on the competing front. Are we going to see you on stage anytime soon? Do you have plans to compete next year? What's that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so we decided I was competing this year, hopes to qualify for the Olympia. I ended up doing a lot of shows that I wasn't planning on doing. Um, and I missed it by a couple points here, 1 point in Miami. And, I could have kept going, but I didn't want to spend my son's summer competing. Um, it's just hard, it's really hard. And
Yeah.
he had the best summer. There are also things that I want to work on that I can say I'm not 100% happy with. When I look at my physique, I'm very proud. I've worked really hard, but there are still, again, it's changed a lot. And when I did take that time off, I wasn't training for bikini. So I've also had to put on more muscle as the division has grown a little bit. Um, and also I want to work on my midsection. That's something that is not where it needs to be. So I don't think it's where it needs to be. So working on that and just putting on just a little bit more muscle, upper body. Um, we decided let's really focus on this. Let's work really hard on it, and let's next year. Because I was thinking maybe the fall, but it's like let's just leave it for next year. So I don't know what show yet, um, but I would like to do something earlier on in the year. I've never done that other than the Arnolds, but yeah, so that's the plan.
It's exciting.
Awesome.
It
Yeah, we can't
is. I'm
wait. Yeah,
excited.
it's always cool to see your name like pop up on the list. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. So that'll be cool. And then just sort of the strategy too of like, okay, if you do qualify early, you know, maintaining through the year close enough within striking distance, but
Yes.
not, competing through the summer so you can really just have that
Right.
quality time with him. The pressure's off, you're
Right.
already locked in. So,
Exactly.
but yeah,
Definitely. So I'm excited for that. And just to see, it's always exciting just to see what the result is like, what you actually look like on stage, after making, changing up training or making those changes.
yeah. Awesome. Well, do you have anything left to add, Mandy, before we wrap and get all of India's info to our listeners?
I just want to thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I've followed you forever. Like,
Aw,
and
thank
it's just
you.
to hear how just insightful and thoughtful you are and the mom you've become and just the competitive nature and balancing everything. It's absolutely inspiring and it gives me chills just to be like
Aw.
it's so amazing. It's just to see you grow and to hear how I love listening to how you are about your strategy. You know, that's one thing with this sport. Like sometimes it's very hard when we take judges' feedback, but even stepping the judges' feedback aside, having to look at our physique as individuals, be like, I need to do this, this, and this. It's not bad. It's not unhealthy. It's the sport and it's how you get great. And it's amazing that you can do that and balance the time with your son. So you're so inspiring.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on today. So tell all of our listeners how they can find you on all of your socials.
So it's India Paulino on Instagram, Facebook. I'm gonna start posting on YouTube. I like start that and then stop, but I plan to to just keep it going. Um, yeah, and then you'll see me around on BPI. So any like BPI sports events, high tech, um, I'm usually there. But those are going to
Awesome.
be the best way to reach me. I would say it's easier for me to see DMs on Instagram versus Facebook because Facebook is my bigger page and it's just harder. So if you want to reach out with any questions or anything, I am happy to speak to you. And Instagram is going to be the best way.
Awesome. Well, we will link all of that below. And we're just so glad that we got to spend this time with you today and get to know you. And we talked about so many great things that are going to value so many people. So thank you so much, India, for coming on our show today.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Yes. All right.
Bye, guys.